My name is Barry Baker, and I've lived in Mount Lawley for 35 years. I'm the patron of the Mount Lawley Society and the recipient of the Gold Medal awarded in 2011 by the Minister of Heritage for making the most outstanding contribution to heritage in Western Australia. The Society was formed in 1977 to promote and preserve the amenity and heritage of Mount Lawley and its sister suburbs of Inglewood and Manoora. This is our story of our struggle to preserve our community. Firstly, how Mount Lawley came to be. The suburb of Mount Lawley assumed its current boundaries 70 years ago. It was a coalescence of 13 separate parcels of land, the largest of which were Swan Location Z, stretching from the river to Wiluna Street and from Walcott Street to First Avenue, and the part of Swan Location Y stretching from First Avenue to Central Avenue and from Railway Parade to Hamer Parade, that is incorporating the Inglewood and Pineapple estates. Sadly, the whole of Mount Lawley has never been in one municipality. It was originally split by Walcott Street between the City of Perth and the Perth Roads Board, the latter of which eventually became the City of Stirling. In this era, under the Stevenson Plan of 1955-6, large areas were designated for medium to high density residential usage. For the next 20 years, all except the Coolbinia area gradually decayed with the invasion of institutions, zero maintenance rentals, and demolitions for low quality units and flats. From the mid-1970s, for those areas within the City of Stirling, the tide gradually turned, due to a new generation of professional young residents maintaining constant pressure on the City of Stirling through the Mount Lawley Society and the Ratepayers Association. This part of Mount Lawley has rejuvenated to a community of young families, proud of the amenity that has been fostered through a long struggle to reverse the Stevenson Plan blight. Especially in the last 15 years, the City of Stirling has come to the party via design control, lowered zonings, community involvement planning, and the establishment of the Heritage Protection Area. Sadly, one crosses over Walcott Street and one encounters a totally different story. William Street. Once a street of attractive colonial and Federation Mount Lawley homes with 7 tennis courts, one sees Stevenson Plan high-rise flats and units interspersed with a field of oat grass and old homes being demolished by neglect. Only 3 homes can be said to have been looked after in character with their origins of a century ago. To a lesser or greater extent, this applies to this whole area. The perception is that this is an area that is floating into a different universe from the rest of Mount Lawley, just waiting to be developed into somewhere which has not yet been decided upon. I want to add that I worked for some 5 to 6 years on the Vincent Heritage Committee with some fine people with vision who served there, and on the Vincent Council. Among them were Jack Marks, John Hyde, Sally Lake, Ian Kerr, who had or have a vision that have worked for it. I want to tell you 4 stories. Story 1. The year 2000 Bayswater Heritage Survey. In 2000, following the previous boundary alterations, those parts of Mount Lawley southeast of the railway line were stripped from the City of Stirling and allocated to the City of Bayswater. The Mount Lawley Society conducted a comprehensive survey of the area in consultation with the local Bayswater councillor. The survey presented questions related to their desired level of protection for the rich urban heritage of this area. Depending on the level of protection, the results in favour of additional protection varied from 67% to 90%. The survey details and results were sent to the Bayswater Council. Back came the brief response. Because a number of the respondents were tenants and not owners, the survey has no validity. No follow-up was invited. Story number 2, the Heritage Accord story. In 2010, the Mount Lawley Society proposed that in order to coordinate the planning of suburban-wide problems, including heritage protection, traffic, parking, etc., that the three councils, Stirling, Bayswater and Vincent, prepare a combined town planning scheme to address these common areas. A meeting was held with the Vincent Planning Directorate to discuss this proposal. On arrival, the director firmly stated that the City of Vincent would have nothing to do with this proposal, because joint planning of this nature was forbidden in the Act. We were flabbergasted. Story number 3, the Perth Inner City Society story. The Perth Inner City Society was formed in 2000 to encourage the City of Perth to give a high value to heritage and residence amenity in general. Were we enthusiastically welcomed? Far from it. We were treated with polite indifference, and it was made obvious that the City Council had other, much higher priorities. We gave up and closed the Society 3 years later. Story number 4, breakthrough meeting with Stirling. The Mount Lawley Society has had ups and downs over the years with the City of Stirling, but as I look back, I can recall a meeting some 10 years ago when there was a seismic change for the better, which continues to the present. We met with officers and councillors Rod Willocks and Trevor Clary, and we came to an agreement to accept a number of vital decisions. These were that a significant part of Mount Lawley, Manora and Inglewood would be protected in a heritage protection area, that demolitions of original properties would almost always be opposed, that zonings would be further reduced in significant areas, and that there would be residential participation in the drafting of amendments to the town planning scheme. The City has now gone further and introduced regulations to prosecute demolition by neglect. All residents of Mount Lawley and Stirling have continued to benefit from this change in culture. I'd like to conclude. These stories illustrate a number of points. For urban conservation and renewal, there has to be a municipal culture to support it. There must be an X factor. This culture must focus on the amenity of the residents, not the interests of investors, developers, or broad brush urban solutionists. From my stories, Bayswater, Vincent and Perth are not prepared to take our community views and needs seriously. From conclusions from these stories and other situations I've been involved in, the evidence is that the City of Stirling has this culture and X factor. In Stirling, our heritage is protected, our present needs are taken very seriously, and the future of our families are felt to be secure. All of the suburb of Mount Lawley deserves this culture, and I include the rest of Swan locations X and Y, now known as Inglewood. After nearly 40 years of struggle, we find ourselves once again fighting for our community. On behalf of the Mount Lawley Society, I invite you to help us to defend our community. Thank you.